Hey, it's Villberg from oeksound here. I'm the new guy at oeksound and I've been tasked with creating content to help you get the most out of our plugins. Now here's a question we get asked a lot. Is Bloom a multiband compressor? Nope. Jokes aside, Bloom can do a lot of things, including frequency-dependent compression. So yeah, you could use Bloom in place of a multiband, but the workflow is quite different and probably a lot faster with Bloom. Since we're talking about Bloom and multiband compressors, let's dive deep into some aspects that Bloom does differently and how it affects the end result. Before we move on though, I'd like to disclaim that multiband compressors are great tools, and while Bloom can do a lot of similar stuff, it's in no way a direct replacement for these tools. Now let's get into it. When we talk about multiband compressors, and there are plenty of great ones out there that I personally use, we can't avoid talking about crossovers. As the name suggests, these processors divide the incoming signal into discrete bands that are compressed separately. And to do that, each band needs to be filtered with crossover filters. Now crossovers have some weird properties that have nothing to do with compression itself. Now Bloom isn't a multiband compressor because it doesn't have any crossovers. Let's compare. I'm gonna show you some examples with FabFilter's Pro MB, a well-implemented multiband compressor that allows you to choose the processing mode inside the plugin, which is awesome. Let's use it to add minimum phase crossovers without actually compressing anything. This common type of crossover causes a constant phase shift to your signal, and it effectively delays the low frequencies. With Pro MB bypassed, let's first listen to this 4-on-the-floor kick drum on its own. It's got a nice attack to it, as you can even see in the waveform here on the display. I'll now engage the plugin. And now it sounds zappy? The delay in the crossovers means that the high frequency transient hits earlier in relation to the body of the kick. You can see this in the waveform as I toggle the bypass. Naturally, the steeper the crossover, the more pronounced the effect. This can definitely sound powerful, but I'd be careful running the same source through multiple stages of crossovers, as this effect can accumulate and eat the definition from your mix. Okay, let's try Bloom next without any processing on the same track. Amount at 0, tone controls flat. And even if I start messing with the controls, the shape of the kick stays intact. The shape of the envelope stays the same because there are no crossovers that would cause a constant phase shift like we saw before. And furthermore, Bloom is actually using linear phase processing in general, which is useful for when you're trying to process something that is part of a multi-mic'd recording like drum overheads, for example. So, wouldn't you get the same benefits by using a linear phase multiband compressor? Yes, it's definitely the most transparent way to do crossovers. Wait, but what about pre-ring? I don't want to get sidetracked too much here, but basically, in a linear phase crossover, the pre-ring of this low pass right here gets cancelled out by the pre-ring of this high pass here, since they're of the opposite polarity. And getting back to Bloom, while it doesn't have any crossovers to cancel out pre-ring, it's designed to stay linear phase only right up until the pre-ring would start to be audible. When a cut or boost gets too drastic, Bloom will gently shift to minimum phase on that frequency region only, trying to achieve the best of both worlds. Now, with the phase stuff out of the way, come on, you can clearly see there are 4 bands here on the interface. Why would you make it look like a multiband if it's not in fact a... Another key feature that separates Bloom from how multibands work is that Bloom isn't working on thresholds. Rather, Bloom is adhering to a target, but that target is dynamically changing depending on the incoming signal. Multibands usually have one threshold for downward compression and sometimes a second threshold for expansion or upward compression. These thresholds are usually set in one place, and you'll have to experiment to find the best values to suit your signal. If you want more high mids in your signal, for example, you'll have to carefully balance between the band threshold, ratio, and output controls to find the best balance of energy without harshness. Now, since Bloom works on an adaptive target curve, you can set the amount where you want it and then lift the high-mid tone control until you find the frequency balance you like. The adaptive target makes sure that when things are getting harsh, it won't boost those frequencies any more than it has to. With the amount value in the squash range, Bloom starts compressing the signal and a threshold is introduced. This sounds similar to a multiband compressor, but Bloom is actually compressing each frequency separately instead of using bands, as mentioned before. When calibrated with the set button, Bloom uses both downward and upward compression to squash the signal into the adaptive target. As for the tone controls, well, they might look like separate bands in a multiband, but really they're just EQ bands for the adaptive target. They're not EQing the signal directly, but you can use them to guide Bloom to make the changes you want. So, is Bloom a multiband compressor? Now that we've talked about the fundamental aspects of Bloom, we can conclude, definitely not. Even when you're doing the frequency-dependent compression thing with squash, you'll get there with greater frequency resolution and without crossovers. And here's the thing, Bloom was never designed to replace your multiband compressors. We call Bloom an adaptive tone shaper because its workflow is designed to quickly get your tracks in shape tonally. Many times you might opt for using your traditional processors like EQ, compression, whether it be a single or multiband, but sometimes it can be much quicker to just put Bloom on it and move on. And that's it for this video. Hope I managed to help you understand Bloom better. If you have any other questions about our plugins, please post them in the comments. I hope we can start a discussion here on YouTube and shed light on some of the more esoteric features in our plugins. Take care now, see you in the next one.